Happy New Year, buddy. How are you?
I am well. How are you in 2024?
I am great. How was your holiday?
It was great. Spent it with family. I know you did too. It's been a while since we've been in these positions. I know.
It has. I
It was
think
good.
most of our recent episodes have been in some configuration, us on location, Garth's
Yeah.
dive bar, me in I don't even think we did an episode of it, but then I went to NFR.
Yeah.
It
Those
was
are
it's been
clips online. We didn't do
right.
a recap like we typically do, but it was a great 2023. I mean, we were again all over the map, and I literally say that because went into it, I told you I am not traveling in 2023, and it was just as bad as
Then I think
2022.
I saw you more times than either of us saw our parents, and I live
Yeah.
close to my parents. So,
Yeah, I
uh,
saw my mom three times because we did New York, went to Missouri slash Branson slash Nashville in one, and then here at the holidays. But we had a few canceled things in the last half of the year that opted not to do, but we've
still got a
just,
lot in.
yeah, we
You
did. I
still got.
mean, I just, you get exhausted from it. I don't know how you do it so much, and I know you've got
Well,
kind of a
I
semi-filled a couple months coming yourself already,
I've
and
said
we're
I
just a few
don't
days
really
in.
intend to travel too much this year, but again, like you found out last year, the best laid plans. And our guest today is really kind of inspiring me to travel because he was just all over the globe.
I
He's
know.
not given it up. Steve Vai is like the hardest working touring musician on the planet,
Yeah,
going
I
all
mean,
over
he
something
just
like
wrapped a 19
dozens of
month
countries.
tour playing 194 shows in 51 countries, and he's here to talk to us about his 2024 touring plans that don't just include touring. You might hear some new music coming from him as well, and then stuff we can't
Including
talk about.
acoustic
Yeah.
music from one of rock guitar's most talented names. So
Oh
this was a
gosh.
really cool conversation about creativity and inspiration and what attracts people all over the world to his music. Here's our interview with Steve Vai. Steve Vai, the legendary shredder. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the music universe. Happy New Year, sir. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Happy New Year to you.
I saw you roll your eyes when I called you a legendary shredder, but it's true. And if it weren't true, you wouldn't have completed such a massive tour, something like almost 200 cities, almost every continent. Uh, was that the plan to try to hit everything, or did the tour just kind of keep building and building and building as you were doing it?
Well, it's kind of like a cycle. You do a record, you record it, release it, and you set out on a tour. And I like to do, there's various kinds of tours I like to do. Some of them are like conventionally America and Europe. But sometimes I like to do very extended tours and just go everywhere. And my story of Light Tour was the winner with like 252 shows in 56 countries. And I just like that. I mean, that's one of the things I just love about being a musician and touring and going to all these other cultures and meeting all the people and the fans and just the environments. They're fantastic. So I knew before this tour that it was going to be pretty in depth.
Yeah, and speaking of touring, that's why we're here. You're about to kick off a series of shows, all kinds of different stuff going on. You got your G3 tour. You've got the Vi Satch tour. Tell us about the exciting 2024 touring slate.
Well, if the last year and a half wasn't enough, uh, the the last year and a half was the full and Violet tour, so it was the full show that I do. But now for 24, it's more condensed, and I'm out with Joe and Eric Johnson for G3 for a good handful of shows. We kick off in about 10 days. And, and then finally, it's so nice. Joe and I are going to do a tour together, just the two of us. And that's something we've toured together a lot, but we've never toured as just the two of us. And for the first time, we'll also have some music that we recorded together, working on a couple of tracks there. So that's exciting. And it's really nice because it's kind of like a cap on the end of a huge touring cycle. And I get to do it with Joe. I mean, we've known each other since we were little kids, I started taking lessons when I was like 12. We've been joined at the hip ever since, but we've never really done anything like this together. So it's very nice.
That's really cool.
Yeah, because Joe was your guitar teacher.
When I was a kid, yeah. And he's been a mentor through my whole life, basically.
That's got to be like surreal for you to have been taught by your mentor and then suddenly, he becomes a partner with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I call it the Vai advantage. I had Satch as a teacher when I was a boy, and it's remarkable. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the story of Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page. They grew up right next to each other, and when they were kids, they would hang out and whatever. At least that's the story I heard. So I guess these things happen, and
Yeah.
it's just remarkable to me that Joe and I have enjoyed such wonderful career success, and we're just these two kids from a little town on Long Island. It's remarkable.
If you had to describe it, how would you say that your two styles of playing complement each other when you're on stage together, you and Satch?
Well, because I was so young, I was 12, and I took lessons for like on and off probably 5 or 6 years. And Joe was always great. And I'd watch him very carefully, and he'd teach me everything. And I could never quite keep up with his sense of clarity, his sense of completion. His tone, his melodic sensibilities. They were always inspiring to me. It always felt like I had somebody that was inspiring me to go up. Go up. And so I was just fortunate. He was always great. He just had that. And I've watched it my whole career, and it's only gotten deeper in him. And so my style and my musical interests are sort of different than Joe's. Our music is kind of different. His music is very melodic, very straight ahead, and wonderful, and it's very accessible. And I seem to have more of a quirky kind of a, approach to things. But just his excellence has inspired me, and that kept me up. It helped me to keep up with my own expansion, so to speak, because there was this massive inspiration that I got to look at every week, and so much of my sensibilities on the neck were inspired by just watching him and learn. You can't not, but my note choice is, it's more unique to me. And that's, I think, my own, the saving grace that I was able to retain an identity and not, just be so inspired by his that I lost my own. So I think there's a wonderful balance there, but we do kind of function in the same embryo in a sense,
Yeah.
Not a lot of rock guitarists doing fully instrumental type stuff. I mean, it really is an excellent, I don't want to say niche, but an excellent space that you both occupy and have defined.
Yeah, it is. And that space has been defined through time in various ways by various musicians that have come along that have been able to really connect melody and guitar. There's great players that have incredible facility, but really the only way that music grows legs is when it has melody. So I remember when I was young, Jeff Beck did that for me. When I would listen to Blow by Blow, Wired, these were instrumental guitar records that were completely inspired with accessible and brilliant melody. And of course, they were being performed in ways that were just astonishing, unique. So he created that not because instrumental guitar music was popular at the time, but he did it. He made it popular because the the quality of the melodies. And I remember through the years, you had all these, like even Mahavishnu, Al Di Meola. It was all melody and incredible playing. I could rip off a lot of some names of incredible playing, but no real, not as much musical substance, so to speak. And then you had like Ingve when he came along and he released this instrumental music that re-sparked that niche. And then, of course, Satriani, he blew it up beautifully. And I've been able to sneak by, so to speak.
Before I turn it over to Buddy real quick, I just have to ask this simply yes or no question because I know he was out on the road with Satriani last year. Is Kenny Aronoff going to be your drummer for any of these dates? Our buddy Kenny.
Well, from what I understand, he's Joe's drummer, so he'll be performing when Joe performs and probably during the jams.
Oh, I see. Very cool.
Yeah, we had him on the show going on a year and a half ago, and super cool guy. I met him.
He's an amazing guy, wonderful guy.
Yeah, I met him when I first moved to LA and the Cat Club. They were doing a Zeppelin tribute there, and really, really cool. So you mentioned about all these pioneers with the melodies. Eric Johnson too. I mean, you guys are reuniting for G3. How exciting is that? Because that thing came about in '95 by Joe.
Yeah, I know. It was. It's nice to be able to bookend it. With the original lineup. It was such a great time. We were young. It was like close to 30 years ago. It was relatively a fresh new concept, and it was a real celebration of the guitar. And Joe's always championed that, and it worked. It worked really well. And I was on a slew of G3 tours. But Joe continued to build the brand with all sorts of different players through the years. It's a really nice little cottage industry, so to speak. And I know the fans love it. So it's really nice that we're able to reignite the original lineup here.
That's awesome.
And you guys have 13 performances starting January 23rd and ending actually in LA.
We have 2 shows in LA, and they're going to be filmed. And
nice.
Yeah, Joe's working on a film of sorts that's sort of a G3 chronicle that his son Zizi is producing, who's turned into a fantastic video creator, editor, crazy, very talented.
So what's next for Steve solo? You got all these great co-headlining jam dates lined up. What's next for you? Are you working on another album? What are you going to do once you're off the road this cycle?
Well, I'm not quite getting off the road that easy.
Right.
After the Steve Vai tour, I'm going to be in preparation all summer for a tour that I'm going out on in the fall that it's a little too early to talk about. It's actually with another band that I'm joining. Cool. I think I'm really excited about it. Looking forward to it. No, it's not Van Halen.
I don't think we're ever going to get that.
But I have a couple of projects in the can that I've been trying to complete, and one of them is a probably the next thing I try to complete. That's a solo project. Is this solo acoustic guitar vocal record that I
Hmm.
started during the lockdown, and I'd like to get that out. And then through the lockdown, a little after that, I started going to Europe and recording my orchestra music. And I had 3 weeks with the Metropole Orchestra in the studio, and then 2 weeks in Tampere, Finland, with the symphony. And so I have about 4 albums worth of orchestral music that's
Wow.
recorded. So that stuff's more or less for. It's not very accessible, but I love it. It's a guilty pleasure. It's kind of
Well,
obtuse, abstract,
I
and
don't know about that word accessible because I think your fans will kind of follow you anywhere. I think the people who get Steve Vai, and I think it's accessible to anybody who. Def Leppard did the same thing. My goodness, did took all their
yeah.
stuff and did orchestral stuff. So I think it'll find its audience among your fans, and it'll be really interesting.
Well, thank you. I compose various kinds of orchestra music. Some of it's sort of similar to what rock bands like Def Leppard do, where you just take your song and you hand it off to a
Hmm.
orchestrator who builds tracks around, builds an orchestra around it. I do that. I do that myself. Sometimes I hire some people to help. But then there's a slew of orchestra music that I compose that's intimately integrated with guitar and orchestra, and it's nothing like any rock musician you really hear because it's compositional. And then there's a slew of stuff that I do that's actually large orchestral pieces that have no guitar, have nothing to do with rock music or rock sensibility. It's much more contemporary orchestral, and that it'll be accessible to some people, but as far as like turning it on and listening to it while you're doing things, well, some people might do that, but it's more artistic and eclectic and relatively well, I will say some of it's innovative. I know that
Hmm.
for sure. It's
That's
unique. Some of it's a unique approach, but it's my little secret. It's just that like it's a scratch that nothing else can quite itch, quite
mhm.
reach.
Yeah.
It's just writing notes and going into this part of your brain that's has this freedom that nothing else can quite compete with. You've got 100 musicians and you can tell every one of them what to do. To me, that's like heaven in a cup.
I
And
love
I
it.
have a whole bunch of orchestra works like that. So that's
I
what
love
I'll,
it.
I'll probably be chipping away at. And then at some point, I'm probably going to return to what I was starting to work on before the pandemic, which was an installment of a record that's part of a quadrilogy of records that I had started with Real Illusions.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
A lot coming up. The tours, the music. We're excited to hear what you got coming, and the tours are definitely exciting. That we can see these 19-month tours continue after what we went through a few years ago.
Yeah, it is nice to be back out on tour.
And I think I wanted to ask this, and because I think you'll understand this question. I don't know of very many artists that play the dozens upon dozens of countries in a given tour. Do you think the universality of your music in particular has to do with the fact that a large portion of it, if not most of what you play live, is not lyrical? There's no lyrics, there's no language barrier. It is just instrumentation that people get to feel in their bodies and have a meaning to them. Have you given any kind of thought to the wideness of that kind of appeal?
Yes, I have. And I think there's various factors involved. First and foremost, I think that I'm able to do what I do today because the music has something in it. Every artist infuses their work anybody actually that is doing anything creative infuses their work with their DNA, their creative DNA. If they can surrender to it, and they're not just pantomiming something else, but they have found something in them that pushes their button, and they're able to manifest it into their work, their art. So I've been able to do that. There's a quirkiness, there's a intensity, there's a charm, and to my melodies through the years that, and this is just from my observation, that the people who are attracted to it stick with. So that's one factor. That there's something in the music that attracts a certain type of listener. The other factor is the guitar is just the greatest instrument in the world. Come on. And it's universal. It just represents something to people that is kind of locked away in their fantasy zone. It's just the guitar is a visceral instrument. It's dynamic. It's cool. It clangs. You can do so much with it. So there's guitar players all around the world. You'd be surprised. You'd never learn about other countries and all these other places the way they really are. You don't learn that in school. You got to go there. So I started going to places like Eastern Europe and Russia and South America in the 90s, and China. I was going to these places nobody was really going at the time. And what I discovered was there's guitar players all over the world, and they're listening to the stuff I'm listening to. They have access to my music. So because there's so many guitar lovers in every corner of the planet, and because I've carved a career in the guitar community, when I go there, they come.
Yeah.
Maybe they're fans. Maybe they're just like, maybe they're guitar players that aren't quite fans, but there's a guitar player here. So I have a built-in audience all around the world in all these four corners. I mean, I toured Russia once for 5 weeks. I've been to Russia many times. I did Moscow 3 times in 1 year.
Wow.
And I started going there in the mid-90s. And they were all guitar players. I remember I was in India once back in the 90s. I wasn't even there to play. And I was at this hotel. I didn't think anybody was going to recognize me or know me. I'm in India in the 90s. And the woman behind the desk recognized me. And next thing I know, her brother's there, and he's a guitar player. And then he brings all of his friends, and he brought his guitar, and he wanted to play for me. And I thought I was going to get a little rendition of some rock and roll guitar with real classic Indian traditional values in it. And the guy,
or Wonderwall.
Yeah. Well, I got Tobacco Road from the guy. So the point is, Western rock guitar playing is prevalent all around the world. And if you're a part of that team, if you go there, they come.
Yeah.
That's why I'm able to play all around the place.
That's wonderful.
Oh, that's amazing.
Buddy, you got anything else? I think that's like a beautiful, perfect place to leave this.
That's perfect. Unless you do, Steve. That was beautiful.
Steve, thank you.
All right. I think I'm good. I appreciate you guys. Very nice.
Steve Vai, thank you so much. Make sure you catch him on the road in some configuration this year. I know I'll be there. I was there in 22 at the Birchmere. It was an excellent show. And I'll catch you with Satch or with G3. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, guys. All right. All the best.
All right. So where do you think you're going to wind up next, this time to see Steve and maybe even Satch with him?
Well, they're coming. They're coming all over the place, traveling.
Well,
so I'll probably be here. It'll probably be here. I don't really have anybody on the calendar that I want to travel for, except maybe the Stones. But they're coming to Philly. So again, when Buddy and I talk, he knows that I don't really consider going to my home turf traveling because it's only about a 4-hour car ride.
You are when you live in DC.
I consider traveling to be going back down to Nashville or going out to Vegas or going to maybe Montana or maybe England, foreshadowing. Or, like we did Dublin.
Yeah, but I am sitting out of those. We're not going to discuss any of that yet.
I
But
know I made a new friend over the last couple of years who's about as
you,
crazy as I am
and
with
that's
traveling, listening to
good
music.
because it takes the pressure off me to travel.
So and you know me, I like to travel solo. I love it. I love being on my own. My parents were like, "You need to find somebody." I'm like, "I have found somebody myself. I'm good. Thank you."
That person can't watch out for himself though sometimes. So I know what they
No,
mean.
I have my senior moments at 29. This year I this year this year, buddy, you and I both have
Yeah,
big O birthdays, and
let's move on. So episode 197, we had Steve Vai. I don't know what's ahead, but thank you all for nearly 200 episodes since September of 2019. That also kicked off with another Steve Lukather, that you interviewed for that. Gave you a great hour of content there, and they're going on tour and just announced a new lineup for them as well. So we're keeping all the Steves on the podcast as much as possible, and I have a great time doing it. So thank you all for that too. We didn't get to wrap 2023 by saying that, so we'll kick off 2024 by saying that, and hope there's many more to come with many superstars such as Steve. Bye.
awesome. Well, for the Music Universe podcast, I'm Matt. He's Buddy
And
the Elf.
you just had to throw that in there after Christmas.
After Christmas, for the Music Universe podcast, I'm Matt.
And Buddy, not the elf, but thank you for watching and listening. Be sure to hit like, subscribe, and share, and check us out at themusicuniverse.com. Take care.